We about to start. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of Mom 365. I'm your host, Janelle. And on Mom 365, we answer the question, what does motherhood look like for you 365 days a year? I also want to welcome you to the Indulge in Self Lounge. I'm so excited today. So today I got my co-host with me, Miss Brittany, and I
Hey.
truly appreciate her because I actually sought her out on TikTok and I just loved her conversation and I just needed her to be here to talk to us. So I'm gonna
Thank
give her
you.
a minute to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Janelle, for having me on Mom 365. Hi, you guys. I am Brittany Goldsboro now. I have recently changed my name, so I have to get used to saying that. But most people might know me as Brittany Daniel or Brittany the host. I have been a social media content creator for the past 9, almost 10 years, mainly on YouTube. And for the past year and a half, I've been really dedicated to being the little drop in the ocean of just helping us reform our Black communities and helping young ladies make better decisions when it comes to actually picking a mate and picking a partner. And I'm so pro marriage. So that's what I've been doing for the last year. I'm also a retired Army vet. I was an Army captain for 14 years. So I'm retired and I am done. But thank you
Congratulations.
so much for having me. I'm super excited to have this conversation. And thank you for finding me on TikTok.
Thank you for being here and thank you for saying yes. So today with Miss Brittany, we are going to have the conversation about unmarried moms giving their child their father's last name or not, especially
Mm,
in the context of protecting their child's legacy. So before we start the conversation, we like to always answer the question, what does motherhood look like for you 365 days a year? I know that you're not yet a mom, but
coming soon.
coming soon. Congratulations. You're a wife now, you're married.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
what do you expect motherhood to be like? Because it's in the near future.
Well, I'm not going to even act like I know yet because they say motherhood is one of the most challenging things. And my hat it goes off to every mother out there. You guys are amazing. I think that it's going to be challenging. I think it's going to show me about myself. I
Mhm.
think that I pray that I instill God, create and uplift and upbring a God fearing child.
Amen.
I think that it's going to be interesting because it's the first time for me and my husband's first child.
Oh,
And I
that's
just pray to
nice.
thank you. I just pray to be a great example. I want to lead by example. And I
Mhm.
want at the end of my life for my child to say my mother was a God fearing woman who loved me and instilled really good morals and values in me. And that she was there for me through anything. That's really at the end of it what I want them to say.
I
Oh,
love it. I love it. All right, you're gonna be a great mom. I love that.
thank you.
All right, now, honey, let's get into this conversation. Because when I heard you talking about it on TikTok, I'm like, whoo, girl, where were you when I was having babies? But we live, we learn, and we try to do better. So for those of you that are not yet moms and you're considering to take that road, I felt this was a necessary conversation to have because we really have to start focusing on legacy and family building and not just being baby mamas and having kids. And not that we choose to be baby mamas, but
Mhm.
life happens,
Right.
unfortunately, because, some of us are not educated. Some of us were educated, but we still didn't follow the path. And then life happened. You can't control other people. So
Hmm.
sometimes you don't ask the right questions, you don't have the right conversations, and you end up in situations where now you're a single mom, you're taking care of kids. Now what? So let's talk
Hmm.
about it. Let me get into these questions because I know you're very passionate about this topic.
Very.
So, what are some of the reasons why some unmarried mothers choose to give their child the father's last name? And what are the benefits of doing that?
I think it's tradition. It's not something that is biblical. It's
Right.
not something that's even in every culture. Like if we were born in Mexico, then the child would have the mother and the father's last name. It's
Mhm.
just an American tradition. And I looked it up before we had this conversation. I wanted to make sure I was right. It's just a tradition. It's just something that we're told you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
However, the way it's supposed to work is a husband marries a woman, right? And she becomes his wife, so she gets his last name.
Right.
The baby end up legally gets the mother's last name, and the mother should have the same last name as the father, so the child would get the last name of the father. But now with just modern dating, us having children out of wedlock, it's been very normalized. Now it's just something that people think that they want to do, and some people choose to give um their baby their father's last name. I'm just really against it, and we can go into it in a minute, but I'm really against it because I think a lot of times men want legacy. That's a manly thing. That's something that makes men feel good about themselves, as their children, their legacy. A lot of men even have told me, not ready to get married, but I don't mind having children.
Which
And I
makes
think
no
that
sense.
it benefits the man with the legacy more than the woman.
Right, right. And I can understand that, and that's why I resonate so much with the conversation that you were having, because I think a lot of times you do it out of obligation, just because of that respect for the man, and just it feels right. You know that it's right. Hey, I carry my daddy's last name,
Mm-hmm.
so you just continue the traditions, and you follow through. That's what
I
I'm
get it.
supposed to do,
I
you
get it.
know. And I think the only time that a mom really decides I'm not going to give that man my child's last name, father's last name, is if you guys are completely not together. There's a lot of like back and forth situations, or things like that, or you don't know who the father is. But generally, if you guys are still in a relationship or whatever, you just automatically expect to give the last name. But then it's like you're going to school, and everybody, all the kids are calling you by that man's last name, but you're not that man's wife, because
You being
they just
called Mrs.
assume.
Brown. You being called
Right.
Miss Brown, Mrs. Brown, and your last name Jenkins.
Right. Because they just assume, because you and your son have the same last name. And even when I remember going to like my prenatal appointments, and the doctors will always refer to me as my child's father's last name, and I'm looking like, well, that's not my last name. And you see it on the paper, and it's hurtful, right? So if
Mhm.
we're really being transparent and honest about it, because a lot of times when you're in a situation of carrying someone's child, you hope to be that person's wife. You hope to carry that last name, and at some point you guys would get on that same page. So to go to a doctor's appointment, now mind you already got all these emotions going on. Now they accidentally then called you this man's last name, and you mad because you done had this conversation. When you gonna make me your wife? I'm carrying your baby. You know what I mean?
Or maybe you don't even like him anymore. Like maybe
That too.
he ended up not being the person that you thought he was going to be, which a lot of these young men now do during pregnancy or when the baby's first born, because you're different, you're not the same, you don't give me enough attention, you're not as fun anymore. They flip the script, and now you have to carry that last name. And I want to say it's up to the mother truly what she wants to name her child. So if you feel in your heart as a mom that that's what you want to do, I'm not anti that. What I'm
Right.
anti is don't feel obligated to stand 10 toes down for somebody who did not stand 10 toes down for you. Do not
Right.
feel obligated to bend and be manipulated or whatever the case may be. And again, I understand some women, they want to, hey, that's my baby's father. My child's going to have his last name. I'm okay. It's
Yeah.
not that. It's
Right. I
that I've
understand.
seen this time and time again where men will bamboozle women, they'll trap women, or they'll give sweet nothings, and then when the baby's here or they're pregnant, they're gone. And
Yeah.
it's not, to me, it's like there's benefits if you're going to be a family. There's benefits if you want to, keep going. But legally, I don't know about where you live, but in the state of Georgia, that's that mother's child. If you are not married in the state of Georgia, legally, the father has no rights until he legitimizes his child, which takes paperwork, which signing this document at the hospital, which is stating that this is my child. Being even on the birth certificate does not matter in the state of Georgia if you are not legitimized. You have to go through a
Mhm.
process. And
Yeah.
in the state of Georgia, by law, it says the child must. I know I said on my TikTok that it should. No, in the state of Georgia, everybody can Google it. It says the child of an unmarried mother must have the name of the mother because she's unmarried. But in hospitals, they don't probably care. The
Yeah.
notary probably isn't, nobody's trying to force you to name your child anything. But I'm just giving women another option because I didn't have my father's name. My mother was not married to my father when I was born. I was a Daniel, even though my father's a Rosser, and I still know who my daddy is. I still love my father. We still have a great relationship, but I carried my mother's last name, and I'm so happy I did. And I want to give women another option so they don't feel like they're obligated, because by law you're not. And you can still get child support. He can still be on the birth certificate. You can still get all the benefits if you want to go down that route. Now, let me say this, and I'm sorry I'm being long-winded, but in the state of Georgia, once the child is legitimized, the father can go to the court and say, hey, I want my child's name changed. And it's up to the court if they want to change the name or not. But I just want mothers to know you have more rights than you may know you have. That's it.
Okay. And I think in Maryland, and because I have one of my babies in Maryland, the other one in Virginia, but we did have to go through the process of signing paperwork and things like that. So I think it's the same thing. So, can you discuss the historical and cultural significance of surnames and their role in preserving family legacies?
Yeah, so it was tradition. And a lot of times with family legacy, your name meant something, right? So if you were like Johnson and Johnson, anybody that's in that family legacy, they want that name because they want to say it's a Johnson. Or we can bring it into time, Harvey's, right? There's a
Right,
reason why Marjorie Harvey allowed Steve Harvey to adopt her children, and they carry the name Harvey. That name means something. But
it
if
is.
if you get a baby by Tommy Brown, and Tommy Brown ain't carrying a good legacy or like what's the point of carrying on that name and that legacy
Right.
for that man?
Follow your child, right?
And a lot of people are like, oh, you sound like a bitter baby mama. I don't even got no kids. I'm just
Right.
trying to stick up for my women who don't have them yet, or possibly want, they're like, yeah, I like what she's talking about. And it's not to spite the man, but if
No.
the mother is going to do all the work, if the mother has to put her life, her body, everything on the line, if the mother has to take care of that child day in and day out, why give these men legacy for free? Legacy is earned through
Right.
marriage. Like a man is supposed to marry a woman and then procreate. But we've allowed men to just come and go. And I get it. I was young too. I am not holier than thou.
No,
If
of
it
course.
wasn't by the grace of God, I'd have a baby daddy too. So I'm not sitting on a high horse saying I'm better. I just want to give young women and other mothers options to know that that's not something they have to do. But it's just tradition. It's just an American tradition. You don't have to follow it. It's not legal. And it's supposed to preserve that if you come from a prestigious background, it's just so you can get that clout. Like if I was a Harvey and I wanted to go anywhere, all I gotta be like, oh yeah, my name is Brittany Harvey. I'm Steve Harvey's daughter. They'd be like,
Name drop.
tables, move, right? Name drop. That's really it's about like that's the legacy that you want to
Yeah.
carry is esteem and privilege.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have esteem or privilege, and then some people continue on the name so they can say no, that's his child.
Right.
Because it's not they weren't married, so they're like, no, that child got that baby. It's also to claim the man as well.
Yeah, that's true. And me being African and where I come from, last names are very, very, very important. In
Mm-hmm.
some African actual cultures, they actually believe that if a man cannot produce a man child, he is not worthy, right? And
Wow.
the reason why they feel that way is because when you have a son, your son carries on legacy because
Mm-hmm.
the daughter marries off and takes another man's last name, and he tends to take responsibility and things like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what we also forget, and that's really important. That's why I really like this conversation, because the idea of young women being married before you create family and things like that was to protect the young lady, because you're supposed to leave your father's house and go to your husband's house, because
Exactly.
for years your father has provided for you, he's taken care of you, he's giving you all the things that you need to be okay as a woman, to protect, because this world, regardless of how much we're there's feminism and we want equal rights and this and that, women are still vulnerable in this world. So it was always important that when you're in your father's house, your father protected you, he provided for you, he took care of you, he met your needs,
Exactly.
right? And so he marries you off to a man that he knows is worthy to take on those responsibilities. But I think because now, because of things such as slavery and other things that have come into the history, we have lost touch with all of that. So now we don't realize that it's important for a man to protect you. It's important for a man to provide for you. It's important for you to know that, hey, my kids are going to be okay. If something happens, we have established this legacy to know that they're good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love this conversation, because guess what? Now people don't like the truth because the truth hurts, right? And like you said, it's not about being holier than thou, because even if
No,
you had a baby, this will still resonate as a conversation that you need to have,
absolutely.
right? And I can relate to it from my own personal experience, because when I did get into the whole process, I wanted to do things the right way. I wanted to be a wife before I became a mother, because I understood the value behind all of that. So that
Mm-hmm.
creates a lot of, frustration, distrust, and things like that, because you trusted someone to, for y'all to do the right things, and it didn't happen. So now you know how to get into that conversation. She's a bitter baby mama. No, never. But you got to
Mm-hmm.
understand that, women give up a lot when we become mothers.
Everything. You give up
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
You
your
go to the
body,
back burner.
right? And there's no guarantee to say that when you go to give birth, you're gonna come out of it.
And that's my key, and that's why I truly promote marriage. And a lot of people are like, well, marriage isn't for everyone. Well, those people should not have children. I'm a firm
Right,
believer, if a man does not believe in marriage or does not want to be married, he does not deserve children, because that's a family. So he should leave women alone, go be led by God, do God's work like Paul,
right,
and allow women who want to be married to hook up with men who want that responsibility, because that's an oxymoron. You don't want to be married, but you want children.
right.
So the woman is supposed to put her life, her body, her youth, her energy, her time for 18 plus years, because y'all, just because the child turns 18 doesn't mean you stop becoming, you're always going to be a mother. So you
Right.
put your entire life on the line for a man just to be like, well, I might be here. That
Mm-hmm.
is crazy to me. And that's the conversation that I want women to understand and kind of open their eyes to, because I was young, being in the moment, not thinking long term. And I feel like if I could be a big sister on these apps and have these conversations with my fellow sisters to tell these young girls that you have other options, because the glorification of baby mama culture is crazy. And it's crazy because it doesn't benefit us. We
No,
get
not
the
at
crap
all.
into the stick. We're called bitter. We're called used up. We're called unworthy. We're called all of these things by Black men. There's pages and pages and pages on YouTube of men bashing single moms and telling other men why they shouldn't date single moms and why that's not their responsibility. I'm like, where's the daddies? Y'all not holding none of these men accountable
Accountable,
for
right? And
leaving
that's
these for leaving these women with these children. And so I'm saying, since you're going to get the crap into the stick, just avoid it if you can.
right. If you
Women
can.
love their children, and I think that that's another reason why not enough women support this, because they love their children. Of course they don't want to
Right.
erase their children, but if they could go back and not have it with that man, they
Yeah.
probably would make a different decision. And I just want any young girl that would listen to just think a little harder. And I also want us as big sisters to stop saying things happen.
Yeah.
I want
It,
us to put the power back into our young women to say, you can prevent this. Okay,
right.
he doesn't have a condom. You bring one. You don't sleep with any. If you decide to sleep with somebody, I always tell wait till marriage. But if you decide to go ahead and give your body away, which is your right, your choice, right?
Right.
Make sure you have a condom. Make sure you're on birth control. Let's not use plan B in unaliving a child as our form of birth control, because that's also spiritually damaging, as somebody who's had one. And I'm anti that. And
Right.
so I don't judge any woman for any decisions that she makes, but I'm so passionate and I speak so firm, because we have too many people that are just like, well, it happens, or you don't need to get married, or marriage isn't for everybody, but we want these women to continue to have children. It's damaging to the Black community and it's damaging to Black women. And we don't get any benefits except for the love of our children. That's it.
Right. And even sometimes kids are not loyal to you when they grow up. Let's talk about the
Or they
conversation.
hell on wheels.
We love them, we take care of them, we do right by them. And another thing too that I think people don't even talk about enough, right? Is when kids get older, you know who they are upset with? They're
The
upset with
mother.
their mothers, not their fathers, not the man, not the one that left, the one that stayed.
Thank
Which is,
you.
it's an irony, but it really happens that way.
Especially
Because
little boys.
Yeah,
especially little boys. And this is why. And there's a lot of hurt men right now that are angry with their mothers, but because they love their mothers, they take it out on other women.
right. That part.
when
And
they
it's
really when they really want to hold their mothers accountable, or maybe their mothers can't take accountability, they say y'all can't do this and y'all can't do that. It's a lot of hurt, broken men out here that need to heal their mommy and daddy trauma, but because they haven't reached that point yet, they continue creating broken homes. They continue to blame black women. That's why this black women hate spree is going on. It's because of the deep rooted issues they have with their mothers, and unfortunately it probably wasn't a mama fault.
yeah. I mean, and it isn't. But the thing is, it's like, you know, how do you really sit down and have a conversation with your child like that to make the other person look like the bad person? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you both had decisions. You know, we created situations and we should have been wiser and made better decisions,
I
right?
think that's it though. I think what you just said is like, as a woman or as a person, sitting your child down because they see what's going on, but nobody's talking to them. Nobody ever sat me down as a kid and said, "Hey, look, I'm so sorry we put you in this crappy situation. I'm sorry that we were not equipped to raise you. We were young. We weren't." I think kids have a way better understanding than we think they do. And if
Right.
we were just honest with them, sit them down, give it to them on their level. They don't need to know details, and it doesn't
Right.
have to be a bashing spree. You don't have to be like, "See, your daddy ain't here." No, it could be like, "I apologize that
Right.
the person I chose as your father did not stand in his lane and his ground, but I'm trying to make the best of it. And this is how I'm going to move forward and do different." It's okay to admit to children, "I messed up and I made a mistake and I'm sorry." And I think if those conversations would probably be had around like 10, 12 years old, or even a little younger, seven, maybe 7, 8, 9,
Yeah.
that the resentment wouldn't be raised, because every time they're mad at you for getting putting them on punishment or whatever
Hmm.
the case may be, "See, if my daddy was here." It's all of these stories and narratives that they're storing up, and then
Yeah.
as grown men they don't know how to deal with, because it's a brick wall at that point.
No, you're right. You're right. Because I have the experience with my kids whenever we go through the discipline. You're mean. I want to go to my daddy's house. You're mean. And I'm like, okay, you know,
Only if
but
you knew.
yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, you're right. Because we got to figure out a way. And it's all about teaching our children how not to have to heal from things that we're healing from now, is by
Mhm.
having these difficult conversations, you know. And I think as parents, we're role models, right? So we have to be able to have the conversations and let them know, hey, look, I messed up. I'm taking accountability. I'm sorry. You know, however it may have happened, you know, like you said, you don't have to get into the details, but you do have to make your children aware of the fact that, hey, mommy is human, daddy is human. So you have to have those conversations, because if
Mhm.
not, they go through life angry,
And making up
you know?
narratives that
Yeah,
helps them deal with the issues.
right.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's got
yeah.
thought.
And sometimes I say, like, for kids like my brother, who, like, my dad was 100% present our entire life, but unfortunately for him, my dad passed away at when he
Oh.
was what, 11 or 12. So
Mhm.
he didn't get to enjoy his father, not because his father didn't want to be in his life or
Mhm.
whatever his circumstances, but because life took him away. So he's
Right.
like, you have children like that who, your daddy died and you don't have a daddy, but then there are people who your daddy is alive but you don't want to be with your kids, and it's like, you know, those kind of things are triggering for children too when you think about
Yes,
it. But we don't
absolutely.
get that deep on that level because everybody is just so surface about everything. You know, we live in this culture where everything goes, we just go with the flow.
Everything. And it's okay. And I want to empower people too. We got to stop telling ourselves this lie of, "I have no regrets because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the person I am." Let's stop the cap. We have to say, "You know what? I do regret some things. And if I could go back, I would do things a little differently." Because when we tell ourselves we have no regrets, we don't deal with our bad decisions. And then
Right.
we can't help our children make better decisions or empower our children not to make the same mistakes. Because if we don't talk about those things, the generational curse is going to continue.
Yeah, you're so
It's going to
right.
perpetuate. So it's
You're,
okay to say, "You know what? I shouldn't have had a baby at that age. I love you. I'm so happy you're here. However, that wasn't smart of me to do that because I should have done X, Y, and Z." And not to sit in that and beat yourself up or have shame or depression about it. But I think us trying to run from our shame
Hmm.
keeps us from being accountable for those things and having those conversations. You don't have to be ashamed to acknowledge a mistake.
Right. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I agree with you because guess what? I was in that place too where it's like, I don't regret it, but then I do. But I say that because it's easier than dealing with the hurt, right? But then when you really sit in it and you think about it, it's like, you know, I had children at a very decent age. I finished college. I did all the things that I was supposed to do, but
Mhm.
yet I made the bad decision of, choosing someone that wasn't ready to do the things that I wanted to do. You know
Right.
what I mean? And unfortunately, that's what happens. So you got to be honest about it.
Right.
And I think when you take the time to really process all of that, then moving forward, you're able to make better decisions and just, you got to accept what has happened because you can't change it now.
Mm-mm.
Like you say, you can't beat yourself up, but you hold yourself accountable, and that's really where you start to heal.
Right. Yeah,
Because
and let it sting a little bit. Those things are okay. You
yeah,
cry, you like, dang, that sucked. I shouldn't have did that. But then you can use those tools and teach your daughters, hey, one thing that nobody taught me were standards and what I should be looking at. So now that you went through this lesson, instead of us telling our little girls, hey, when you having a baby, let's focus on how is your education? What are you going to do? Do you know what your purpose is?
yeah,
Have you met, is he husband material? We got to stop asking these young
mhm,
girls, when are they having children, and ask them, have you seeked your purpose yet? Do you know what you want to do for the rest of your life? Here's some standards before you get with a man. These are the things that he should have in place. Because I feel like if we end up settling for dudes that are we shouldn't have settled for, because nobody gave us a blueprint of, hey, he needs to check this box, this box, this box before you even give him the time of day.
right,
You
yeah,
know, we need a better blueprint for our young girls.
yeah. We definitely do, and then you have people like me who um got the blueprint, right? I had the father. He told me everything. We had the conversations, right? And
That's
even
good.
I wasn't even allowed to have boys call me till I was 18. And even then, my father still didn't want them to call me. That was not the purpose. He didn't care about none of that. All that was important was that you got your education. You're going to be self-sufficient, because not only were they preparing me to be a wife, but they prepared me to also be able to be independent, not in the sense that I don't need a man, but in the sense that, hey, if anything comes up, this world is changing. I can still fend for myself. I can
Mhm.
still care for myself because people change, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes we want to be stubborn.
Oh yeah, because
Sometimes
we think we know it all, girl. When you're young, you think you got it all. I thought I had it. I thought I had life figured out at 21, child. Couldn't tell
that
me nothing.
part, that part, yes. And I was one of them. I'm like, look, I got this figured out. I'm at 23, and when I met the very first conversation that I had, look, if you're looking to just have a good time, I'm not the kind of woman you want, because I'm looking to be somebody's wife. Now, I
Mhm.
stated it in the beginning. I stood by it. But, you're getting older, things are changing, and this is another conversation that we got to talk about too. Everybody's saying, oh, well, the clock is ticking, time. I'm running out of time. My eggs are getting old. I'm not as going to
Yeah.
be as fertile. But guess what? Freeze the
Wow.
eggs, but
You don't
wait
even gotta
for
do that.
the right person.
No, wait. I got married at 34. And here's the kicker, because I made a video. I told you I've been on YouTube for a long time, right? I made a video really just telling women, just because you're 30, it's cool. Like, don't freak out. I was 30 with no kids, not married, had no prospects in sight. And I was just saying, you can still have a full life. You can still be cool. Like, it's not a dead end. You're good. I get it that I say you still got time. I did not get fine. I didn't meet my husband until I was 34. We got married at 34. And child, these eggs is fresh
Right.
and they work.
Yeah.
So this is what I want young women to understand. You can prepare for marriage and having children without being with a man. So what I did is, while I was in my 30s, when I hit 30, I went and got I got my egg reserve checked and my hormones checked, right? Then when I was around 32, I got an ultrasound on my uterus just to make sure there were no cysts and fibroids and all of those things. Those prevent Black women from having children more than age. I know
Right.
plenty of Black women who have babies in up 30s and 40s. You know
So
what I
my
mean?
44 when she had my brother.
Hello. And I understand that some women don't want to be older moms, and I get that, but I'd rather you be more established, know who you are, and have more money and have a more stable situation than just to have a child because you're young and you're fertile.
Right.
As long as you keep yourself healthy, as long as there's nothing going on with your reproductive organs, if you didn't hit menopause yet, you're good. I didn't believe in freezing my eggs personally. I didn't believe in IVF. My husband and I were very clear, like if it didn't happen naturally, we were just not going to do it. But what I did is I did a lot of preventative work before I met my husband. So when it was go time, it was go time, and I knew everything was working. What ends up happening to a lot of Black women who have fertility issues is the doctors will tell you, if you say, "Oh, I have a lot of heavy cramping," they'll just insist on birth control. They don't do any lab work. They don't check you for anything, and they say, "Oh, you're young, so we'll just wait until you're trying to conceive." You get
Right.
married, they make you wait a year, and then if after a year of you not trying to conceive, then they start running tests. The doctors work for you. You can
Yeah.
ask them to give you all of those things even before you're trying to have the child. They looked at me like, "Are you trying to get pregnant? Like, what's going on?" No, I want to make sure my stuff is working. Please order the test. Do my insurance cover it? Okay, order the
Being
test, please.
proactive. Yeah. But you know
Yeah.
that the conversation about it too is being a nurse, we know that unfortunately the healthcare system when it comes to Black women and pregnancy and things like that, they're not really in our favor. I hate to say
Mm-mm,
it, but
they're
it's
not.
the truth. So you have to be knowledgeable. And the thing about it is a lot of our young women are not, because nobody's having these conversations. You know,
Mhm.
our moms didn't know any better.
Yeah.
It's just not conversations that we're having. And then even to talk about getting married young too, that's not even a problem either. And what people fail to realize is it's better to do it younger too, because you start to build legacy earlier, you know, when it's two people coming together. And of course, now one thing I've always been a supporter of that I think a lot of people don't talk about too is when you and somebody are dating and there's potential that you feel like this can be my husband or my wife, premarital counseling. That doesn't mean that you guys are going to go to the altar today or tomorrow, but what it does is it allows two people from two different backgrounds and two walks of life to be able to sit down together and try to maneuver through the world of what marriage really is going to look like. You
Mm-hmm.
know, how can we make our differences become one? How can we understand how your parenting style is, or you know what traumas you may have? How can we work through certain processes to determine if we are a good fit,
Yeah. I
right? But we
I
all
think
in love, and you know.
yeah, I would say it's way more than love. I as a married woman,
Mm,
you need more than that. And I think that it takes a very mature person. So I agree, if the two individuals, the man and the woman, both want to be married, I feel like if you're young, you do need other married people to kind of shepherd and shield over you. Like if your parents are married and that's healthy, like
right.
healthy
Healthy.
guides in that. If you have somebody at your helm to help you through the early stages of marriage and adjusting to marriage, because if you're young and you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to put your feelings aside, you don't know how to not hit below the belt, there's a lot of maturity that has to come with marriage. So I agree to the point where if you both are on the same page and you're mature and you're really ready for marriage, I think marriage is great. However, I also can agree on live your life a little bit. And when I say live
Yeah.
your life, that does not mean sleep around. Please keep it to
Right.
yourself. It's not
Right.
worth it. You ain't gonna
Travel.
even care about
Find
them jokers.
yourself.
You ain't gonna care about them jokers or them women in a couple years. Just keep it to yourself. Live your life. Get to know who you are. Get to know who God says you are. Learn your purpose, and then link with somebody. Because
Right.
sometimes when people get married too young, um, they get married strictly out of love. They don't know themselves. Like I know a young lady that just got divorced and she got married young, and she was like, "I don't even know who I am outside of my husband." So I'm relearning myself in her early 30s. And there's no recipe for a perfect situation, right? So these are all just, but I just want to encourage, like, marriage is not a happiness button. You're not going to push it and just become more happier. It's not going to erase any childhood traumas. It's not going to, I used to think that if I had a marriage and kids, that my life would be, there's areas where it does fulfill, right? But you still, it ain't enough. Your husband, your children, you need God, you need hobbies, like you need more. So if you're ready and you're mature and you really want to be married, then great. But it's okay to say, I'm not ready yet. but don't procreate. Don't make no children in the midst of you wait. Just
Yeah,
live your life.
I agree with you, and I think that's kind of why I was always so against of my parents' concept of because my parents didn't want me to leave home till I got married, and I was
Mhm.
so against it because I wanted to experience being on my own. I wanted to
Yeah.
experience what it was like to be independent, be able to have my own house, have my own space, make my own decisions, do my own thing. So I was ready for marriage because that's what we've been groomed since you're young,
Mhm.
as from it's just a cultural thing, right?
Mhm.
That's how we're groomed. So, but at the same time, because I was raised in America, I wanted that idea of being independent, knowing what
Yeah.
it feels like to live alone, to all of that. But I do agree with you, and where I got caught up was being in a relationship in my 20s, all of my 20s. And that was a time that I should have taken, especially since we weren't moving towards marriage. And my parents kept telling me, hey, look, you need to just go out there, live your life. If it's meant to be, you guys will find each other again. But when
Yeah.
you're young, you don't like the sound of that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
what does that mean? You know what I mean? We leaving things up to chance.
Yeah.
But if I could do things all over again, they were right. I should have traveled. I should have found more, just been more involved in myself and trying to
Yeah.
figure out the things that I want, the things that I like, the things that I desire. The only thing that I was very consistent about was my education because my father don't play that. So ain't no way I'm gonna disappoint him and tell him like, oh yeah, I done got a baby and I ain't got a degree. We not, because then you know what I mean? Then we having a conversation that we disowning you.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? People might say that that's really harsh, but the reality is when you have a certain standard and level of life for your children, those kind of things, it hurts. It's disappointing because you understand the kind of future that they're going to have.
Mhm.
Right. So when you, as a parent, you've been there, you've done that, you always want to set the standard for your children to have better.
Yeah.
But when you're young, you're dumb, you're full of calm, you don't know no better. That's really what it is. You think you got it all figured out.
That's the girls I'm trying to like just shake a little bit. Just wake up, please.
Yeah,
Some of them get it, some of them don't, yeah.
yeah, with time, I think if you continue to have the conversation, that's the most important thing. Somebody has to be having the conversation because guess what? Social media is taking over everything. Like we have this false sense of reality. But
Mhm.
people like you who speak truth, whoever is in search of truth, they shall find truth.
Oh, thank
Right? And then the
you.
ones who aren't, they'll find it. Unfortunately, it'll take a lot of bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It's
But
some people that just want to be bumped.
right.
All right.
That's
It's
all
okay.
trauma. It's all sometimes all some people know is chaos,
Yeah, that's true.
unfortunately. So what considerations should unmarried mothers take into account when deciding whether to give their child the father's last name or not?
Do you truly deep down in your spirit believe that he's going to be an active father? I'll tell you guys this. But right before I found out I was pregnant the first time, when I was 21 years old, I want to say a week or two before I found out the father of that child cheated on me.
Mm,
And I called my mom when we found out we were pregnant, said, oh, we're getting married and we're going to do this. Cause that was the plan. We were military. Oh, I'm getting married. We're going to have a baby. My mom was like, Brittany, no, I didn't want that for you. Like, she was like, are you crazy? Right. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. We about to be a family, all of this stuff. I found out he cheated on me and all the trust that I had in him dwindled. Cause
yeah,
I'm like, well, if can't trust you to do this, right, and be right with me, how am I going to be able to trust you to be a father to my child? So
yeah,
I didn't want that life. I didn't want to be a single mom. I didn't want to do to have the life that my mother had, you know. And so I chose to um terminate that pregnancy. And that's why I'm so pro prevention, because had I known I could get pregnant, I wouldn't have gotten pregnant because I was under the impression that I couldn't get pregnant, that I couldn't conceive. So
right,
I was acting as if I couldn't. I was like, well, since I can't get pregnant, whatever, you know. And then when I got pregnant and then I terminated my pregnancy, I always speak about women that not being your first result or the first thing you go to, because the spiritual ramifications that you have from that, nobody ever talked about even after that. And I speak about it openly now, and it took a lot of years to be able to speak about this,
Right.
but it's very spiritually damaging, because that's not God's will or God's intention for any, he doesn't, that's not what he wants. And so for young ladies to put it in rap music and to be on TikTok saying that, oh, he thought he was going to trap me, got it gone. And that's like a line now. And women are getting the procedures like it's nothing. I don't want to promote that. So I speak about it, because it's like, no, y'all not really talking about the real and what's on the other side of that.
Right. Yeah.
And
It's
so
trauma.
mhm.
I've never had one. I've never taken that route, but I know people who have, and I know that it's traumatizing. And if you're really honest with yourself and you sit with yourself, it's not, it's not something that you would have wanted to do if you didn't have to do it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So,
So yeah. But to
yeah,
answer your question, the pros and cons is like, is he going to be there? Right. That was a long story to get back to this. Do you really feel like, does he deserve it? Just to be 100%, just because he gave you a child, does he deserve, how did he treat you during your pregnancy? How did he treat you? Was he there? I feel like if he sat with you and was with you with the morning sickness and was helping you through the process, took you to your doctor's appointments, he was there active, then if you want to, cool. But if he didn't show up, he had another baby on you, he had another girlfriend. Like one young lady in my comments one time said, or she DM'd me, said that her baby's father showed up to the hospital with his girlfriend. So you had a whole girlfriend in 9 months? Those are the things like I want women to think about. Then on the other side of that, if you feel like he deserves it, if he's not going to be present and you give him the child his last name, passports. You have to get this man's permission to do
yeah,
everything with your child. And in
right,
some states, if he signs a birth certificate, he's the father, he has rights to that child. So you as a mother have to say, well, if I'm going to be the sole provider anyway, do you deserve rights to my child? So she should actually figure out while she's pregnant, what are the laws of the state? What makes the baby legitimately or or not biologically, but legally his? Because
right,
some states you sign a birth certificate that don't mean anything.
exactly,
Um, you need to know what you're allowed to do with your child and what you're not allowed to do with your child. In some states, if the father has custodial custody just like you, he can take your child and there's nothing you can do about it. He could pick the child up from school, take your child, and it's legally his. So I want young women, instead of just jumping the gun and just saying, oh, that's my baby daddy, really think about your life long term. Really think about you and your child. Because if you are a single mom, sometimes they stay, but statistically, 50% of cohabitating parents do not make it. They
right,
say marriage is no guarantee. Well, that's an even shorter guarantee.
yeah. No, I
So,
agree. I definitely
so
agree.
I want them to really think about their life 5, 10, 15 years. How much influence do you want that man to have on your child? Because that's your child. He
Yeah,
helped you make it, but that's about it. If he wasn't there through nothing else.
yeah. And then, like you said, and it's important too because now your child is carrying on a legacy of somebody that isn't doing right. So what if now you've created, like you said, a generational curse, and your child follows that same path? So we got to be knowledgeable about certain things. So you're definitely right. And this is another thing too that we got to talk about. Like you said, the Black community, we got to do better because we got to start talking these songs that are being created. We got to start talking about wives and husbands and not baby mamas, because everybody think it's honorable to be a baby mama. No, it's not at all. Like, to me, that word, you shouldn't even want it associated with your name. Even right now, don't call me nobody. I'm nobody's baby mama. That's our child. I'm your child's mother because it's disrespectful to me. I see
Hmm.
it as a very derogatory term.
I do
So
too.
I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want nobody to associate that with me because to me
And they only
it's
call
not,
Black women that.
yeah, it's not honorable at all. It's nothing about it is honorable. I'm not a wife. I'm gonna be a wife, because I'm claiming
Period.
that right, that's my path, that's my future. And I made mistakes in my past and I own
Mhm.
them, but to
So
be
have
out
I.
here, yeah, to be like, oh, I'm his baby mama. No, we not. I'm not. I'm
Mm-mm.
not. And I don't take any pride in that because to me, it's not honorable at all,
Mhm.
you know. And I understand why my daddy was so mad at me when I told him that I was having a baby. I was scared to even tell my parents because I already
I
knew,
bet
like,
Africans don't play that.
yeah, girl, my father, when I said he was mad, even though he showed up and he showed out at my baby shower just because he
Yeah.
loves
Because he
me,
loved you, yeah.
he loves me, he was very disappointed.
Yeah.
There was no honor in that. There was no, he wanted to be celebrating a marriage and not a baby shower. And unfortunately, he passed before he could celebrate a marriage for me, which is very unfortunate because I can only imagine the kind of wedding my father would have given me.
Oh,
You
girl, you African girl, you would have had the whole kit caboodle, okay?
Right. It would have been people there that I don't even know. You know what I mean?
Right.
His friends and their friends because the thing is, it's honorable to be able to know that a man is taking responsibility of this young woman.
Mhm.
We know that she's in good hands. Well, at least that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
Because some men get married to control women.
Yes. And you don't want to be
Unfortunately,
a slave,
everybody
child.
have good intentions, but it's an honorable thing. So that's why Africans they celebrate it the way they do.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but
That's
God rest.
okay. You still can have your celebration, girl. Still have
I,
your celebration.
I don't even think I'm gonna have a big wedding, and it's only because my dad is not here. It doesn't have the
Oh,
same. It don't have the same
no.
like for me because I just know how proud he would have just been of his daughter to just she got her degree. I didn't go be a doctor like he wanted me to, but I
That's
did go
okay.
get now imagine she's done that, but now, okay, she got education, but now I've trusted her to this man that's gonna, care for her and to celebrate that is honorable for him. So I don't think because I understand the whole
But
behind
still do it. If you want a big wedding, you
it.
still do that. You honor yourself. You have the wedding that you want. Don't do that to yourself. I wanted a small wedding with nobody there, and that's what I had. So you do the wedding that you want.
But see, I wanted a small wedding too. For me, I want something intimate, but
Mhm.
because my parents, I would have known there's no such thing as like because what I would have done, we would have done like a traditional wedding,
Mhm.
which is where I would have given them what they wanted. And
Got
then the
it.
actual white wedding, it would have been something more intimate because I believe in that's a moment that you share with people that really means something to you. Because it's
Mhm.
expensive, even though
Yeah,
Africans,
all of
to them, it's not expensive, but I'm different.
I don't blame you, girl.
Yeah. So, what considerations should unmarried mothers take into account when deciding whether to? I think we did that one.
Mhm.
So, how does the choice of the child's last name impact legal and custodial matters, such as establishing paternity and child support? You
It
talked about.
depends. Yeah, it depends on the state. So every mother should look up their state law because Georgia is very different. Florida's different. Georgia's different. And again, if the father does not himself fill out the paperwork and submit it to the court to get that baby legitimized with DNA, paperwork, court documentation, that child is not legally his, even if he signs a birth certificate, even if he takes a DNA test. So legally, all the rights are still on the mother, regardless if you show up or not. So, and that's another thing is like, I want these young men to also know their rights and be protected as well. Because if you do want to be in your child's life, if you do not want to be on child support and all of these things, you also can't just be giving these women children left and right. You got to know what's going on and what you're allowed to do because half the time they don't. They just
They,
do it and then be looking crazy. Like I felt bad though because I did when I was talking about the last name, a young man made a stitch and he was like the jacked up part about being in state of Georgia is like I don't have rights to my child. And and that did break my heart because it is unfortunate for the young men who do want to be in their child's lives.
this, yeah.
But because of state law. So that's what I'm saying. You have to know. And then my sister also told me counties can even there's a county down here in Georgia called Muskogee County down in Columbus. They have their own laws. So you
Mm.
need to know your state and your local and national laws because you could have not a lot of say so about your child, and that's unfortunate. But because you're not married, those are the repercussions to those situations. But if you wait until you married, a lot of that stuff can be alleviated.
Yes, because guess what? You're legally binded. You're legally protected. And people don't like to hear that. They say it's just a piece of paper, but it's a piece of paper that could save your life. You
And
know,
save assets and all of that. And that's another thing that I talked about, is because I made a statement saying that, say if you and your baby's father lived together, right? He was being a great man. He was taking care of everything, paying the bills. You were a stay-at-home mom. Things were great. And this could happen for married women too, but things were great, right? And God forbid something happens to him. He goes to the hospital, he's in a car accident, he passes away. I was telling them, you have no legal rights to any of his assets.
or
You
to
have no
make
legal rights to that house, any of his cars, bank account statements, anything. I know people that work at banks, insurance, they said the same thing.
right,
Everybody in the comments were saying, oh, you can be added as a beneficiary and you could be added to this. If these little ninjas are not even responsible with their sperm, how in the heck do you really gonna place your trust into these little young men to put you on an insurance policy and keep that policy running?
right.
Now, if you
That,
get one on your own, that's smart.
mhm.
However, I don't want us to make those excuses to be like, well, I'll just do this. And if a man is going to jump through hoops not to marry you, but he still wants a child, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
a huge red flag, because at the end of the day, you get the short end of the stick, regardless if you want his support or not.
yeah.
The burden falls on the mother. And that's what I want young girls to understand, is like, all of that might be cool if he's responsible and he does put you on all of that. Why would a man go through all of those things when all he has to do is make you his wife
It's marry you,
and
right?
marry you? And that's it.
And you know what? I've never understood, you know, because this is the reason why I never want to be in that whole baby mama conversation or even be that, because I can never understand how can you commit to having a child with someone and to spend how many ever years raising that child, but you can't commit to something as simple as marriage,
Because
right?
we're not making them. Steve Harvey told us a long time ago, we're not requiring these men to marry us before we give them what they want.
What they
Right?
want.
Most men want legacy. We had this conversation about legacy. Most men want to procreate to keep their legacy, their name going. If all Black women said, you know what? Nope. Until you marry us, we're closing our legs.
Right.
A lot more men, even the ones who didn't want to get married, would have to be like, well,
That
I
part.
want some. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And you know what, Doug, that's true, because guess what? That's one thing men can't live without. Now, women, we can go years and years and years without. They've created tools that make things work for us, right? I mean, I'm being honest though, but men in general, they cannot. But if it's only one woman that's saying, I'm not going to do this, guess what he's going to do? He's going to go to the
Go to
next
the next one.
and she going to do it. So it makes it hard for us to hold them accountable when we're not doing it collectively.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to empower them to understand, is like, we have more power than
Yeah,
we think. And for a
right.
woman to say that she doesn't want to get married, but you want family, to me, you're being selfish, because you're not thinking about your children, because he can leave. You can't go nowhere
That part.
unless you about to just really drop your children off and be like, here, which only 13, what's like 17% of single parents are males. So 9 times out of 10, the mothers are going to stay around.
Yeah.
He has a revolving door. He has no ties. He gets mad, he can leave. At least if he's married, he got to come home.
Yeah. Well, he's held accountable to take care of that child, to do something, and
Something.
then another thing too that we don't talk about is when the men leave, guess who's accountable for that child? Not just you, but now you've put a burden on your family as well. The woman's family, a lot of times, because they're the ones that have to step up to help you through the process, and whatever it is that you have to go through, they take up that role of that man, which is not fair to them, because a lot of times they've already raised their own children.
Or
You
you're
know,
stuck with somebody that you don't even like. Like,
yeah.
my heart goes out, and I said this today on my TikTok. My heart goes out to Kiki Palmer. I'm not one to sit up and gossip about celebrities. I don't
No.
wish that on anybody, right? However, if that young lady did not have a baby with him, she could have went through her situation, healed, and and behind closed doors, because the only reason why we know what happened is because she had to file a restraining order that went public, and she had to file custody that is public documents, right? We would have never known if she did not have a child with him. And this is a lot of women. I want women to use people's examples and think about it. I'm not bashing Kiki. I love Kiki. I've been a fan. I've met her. Love Kiki down. So this is just an example. I've never kick a black woman when she's down. I don't wish this on nobody. But if she would have not had a child with that man, even though she loves her son, she could have healed in private, got and left in private, would have been lived in a whole nother state, whole nother country, never had to deal with this man ever again. But for the rest of her life, in some form or fashion, maybe not anytime soon, but eventually she's going to have to deal with this man again. College graduation, high school graduation, her son's baby shower, her son's wedding, his birthday parties. Like, the men never go away if they want to be an active dad. And sometimes it ain't even about the daddy wanting to be active for the child. He want access to you.
And it's out of spite too. I'm gonna
He'll
make
show up.
So I'm gonna show up. And and it's very unfortunate.
Especially a man like that.
Yeah.
Especially a man who's a narcissist or who is abusive. A lot of these men too want access to the woman. They want to bring you down a peg, take you off of your pedestal. They want to tell you not so hot. They want to humble you. And now you're stuck with them forever. And that's what I want young ladies to understand and prevent. It's not that I'm trying to police your body or I don't want you to be a mother. Of course I do. I want you to do it with a man who's worthy of you sacrificing all of that for, and a man who's going to cover you in spirit and body and financially. That's going to say, that's my wife. I don't play about her. Because baby daddies be like, man, bump my baby mama. All up on this internet. And it's disgusting.
Disrespecting them after they do everything for your child. So are there situations where giving the father's last name might not be the best choice for the child's future or legacy?
I don't know. I think it's just a very personal. I don't think that it's good or bad. I think that
it's, but I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay. I don't think it's I don't know. I guess because I'm a woman. It may be different if I was a man or a boy or a man. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think situations that you can consider something like that. Let's say the daddy may have committed some kind of a crime that's so heinous or something like that, and now you're associated with this man. Every time they hear that last name, they be like, oh, that's your father. You know, like those kind of situations. Like when you think about serial killers or, you know, people who do crazy things. Look at like the sniper that we had down DC that was just going around shooting people. And then now you know, how do you separate your kids from things like that? Because now for the rest of their life, all they know you as is that man that raped them people, that man that killed them people. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, because that's that that you carry. That was his legacy.
That's what the Hitlers. I remember watching a documentary. Remember the Hitlers in World War II?
Right.
A lot of them fled Germany, came to America, and they never had children. Like it was like 3 families with the last name Hitler that never had children because they didn't want to carry on that legacy of Hitler. Now, I don't know if they changed their names or whatever the case may be, but that's true.
I would have changed my name. I ain't gonna lie. Thank God my daddy ain't do nothing crazy because I wouldn't want to be associated with that. No, because it's like that wasn't my cross to bear. So why do I have to spend the rest of my life being taunted and, you know, being teased and being treated, ridiculed and be miserable because of decisions that he made? That's not fair.
And the thing, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize. I was gonna say, and the thing about the names, regardless of the name, that's still his child or not. Like a name is not the determining factor. We're actually, none of our names matter. We're children of God. When we leave this world, nobody's name matters. It's going to be did you do your purpose? Did you do what God called you here to do? Did you live in obedience? So none of that matters. You are a child of God, and DNA is DNA. So your name can be Jenkins fried rice. That's still your daddy.
That's true.
You look just like that Joker. That's still your daddy.
true. It's true. And I like that you said that, because then another thing too that we fail to think about. Look, I lost my train of thought. But hopefully I remember and I come back to it. So can you provide examples or anecdotes of how the choice of a child's last name has influenced their identity, sense of belonging, and their family?
I would say, I'll give you my example. So my mother raised me as a single mother. My dad lived in a different state. My mom raised me in California with her family. We were all Daniel. So I felt a part of the family that I was, and I grew up
Mhm.
loving my name, and I love that side of my family. Do I love my other side? Absolutely. My older sister has that, or had that name until she got married. Most of my cousins have that name. I don't feel less of a Rosser because my last name was Daniel for so long. When I go hang out, that's still my daddy, that's still my cousins, that's still my grandma. So I never felt like an outsider to my dad's side, but I did like that legacy because I did have a prestigious family. Like my family on my mom's side was upper middle class. You know, they were very prestigious. They had jacket you, all of that. So I didn't feel different from my family, the family I grew up with.
I
You know,
understand.
and so if it was reversed and I was with my dad and I had my dad's last name, so my mom's going to be left out. Like I know some families where women keep giving this man children, so all the children have the last name, including the father, and you the only one
Mm-hmm.
that don't got
That's,
the last name. And a lot of times it's not because the man doesn't love her or find her valuable enough to marry. She's not making it a requirement.
yeah. Yeah. But then too, is I'm glad that you said that, because guess what? When you do give a child, you give a child to a man and he doesn't give you his last name, you do feel a sense of, oh, am I not worthy? Like, what is it? I can have your baby, but I can't have your last name. Like, I'm not understanding. Let's make it make sense, right? So that can create some situations as well, because now you're questioning, like, so what's the issue? That you can't give me that last name. You
And
know,
that's why I want women to just wait. Don't wait until he says, I want to marry you or I'm going to marry you. You can have a child with me. You can enter my body once you marry me. And I'm telling you, ladies, if you do it, the ring might come a little faster. I'm trying to tell
that
you.
part. Right. Or if not, he's gonna prove you right or prove you wrong, or he gonna move along, and the right one will be able to come along.
And we got to be okay with allowing people who are not for us to go. Like we
Yeah.
can't be so desperate for people and men that we hang on to them because we like them. No, allow them to, if they don't feel that you're worthy or value, or they don't want to be married, they don't want to marry you, another man will find your value. Your value comes from you and God. Not what
Amen.
a man, not if a man wants to marry you. And best believe if he don't find you valuable, oh, it's another one that's
That
gonna
that
come and you gonna be everything that he wanted. He gonna be like, I've been waiting on you.
right. What they say, another man's trash is another
Trash is
one's
another
treasure.
man's treasure.
It's
So,
true.
very true.
What alternative options or strategies are available for unmarried mothers who wish to protect their child's legacy without using the father's last name?
Um, the only thing I can think of is just making sure that you have a DNA test, that you know that that's, nobody legally can or say that that's not his child. Make sure that the grandparents are aware. Um, try your best to allow them to see their other family members if that relationship is copacetic. I think legacy more so is experiences versus like the material things that we focus on, right? Because we focus on, like, when I hear legacy, I think of like football players, or I just think of like the material things of a name or something that they can come with, when in all actuality, legacy are those relationships. Do they get to spend time with their cousins and their grandparents? And it's unfortunate that we have so many broken homes that it's normal for children not to know who their family is. And as somebody who got to know my family members later in life, that is so important. You
Yeah.
need to know who you come from so you understand yourself better. When I started hanging around my grandparents on my dad's side, I was like, that's where I get that from. And that's why my hands look like, that's where I get my ears from my grandfather. I get my ankles from my grandmother, like I get my eyes from my grandmother. So there's things that I was noticing. oh, that's why I act like that. So I think that when we're so focused on our feelings and our emotions when we raise children, and that's the thing, is like, if you are not ready to put your feelings aside, I'm going to pause. That's why marriage is so much important. That's why marriage is so important to do first before children. Once
Right.
I learned being married, you're supposed to die to yourself every day, right? You're supposed to give your life to Christ. You're supposed to die to yourself to be more like Christ. That prepares you for marriage, because every day you have to die to yourself to make your marriage work, because it's not about you. That prepares you to be a parent,
Yeah.
because it's the ultimate sacrifice, because you really have to die to yourself to put yourself. So if we kind of got that order back, everything else will fall into place. But going back to the whole legacy thing, I think that it's more important that children know their families. And not to get off topic, but I wish men, before they did this, really stopped and thought about their real legacy. And what does that look like? If you have two baby mamas, right? And I'm giving you a real life example of my family. You have two baby mamas, one man, right? You have now broken homes. These two women probably don't get along, right? They have children. And because of their beef, maybe some of these kids get along, maybe some of them don't. And then they have children. And now we got 11 cousins. Half of us ain't met each other. Half of us have never been around each other. Half of us don't know who's who. And it's just like, you don't think about your real legacy, and it's the relationships within your family. So when you make decisions as a man to just sleep with whoever you want to, and procreate and have all of these babies, but you don't think of the real legacy of, dang, are my grandchildren going to get along?
Mm.
Are my grandchildren even going to know each other?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I want Black men to really think about, except for thinking about with their little head. Because I'm living that. That's my family's thing. My grandfather had two wives, went back and forth for years. They had children on each side. Then came the grandchildren. And now us as grandchildren have to reach out and heal and mend and
Yeah, yeah, I understand because we have some of that in our family, so I get it. And
Mhm.
then another thing too that people fail to think about, and I think we don't talk about this at all or enough, is when you just out here making babies and people don't know each other. That's where incest can happen too, because you out here dating and meeting people you don't know who you related to. Because you don't think, oh, well, when I meet this man, he might be my brother. Let me go do a DNA test. You don't think about none of that kind of stuff. But now, the times that we're living in, things like that are possible to happen because
Mhm.
nobody knows anybody.
And somebody said that that's why you should give your children the father's last name. That don't mean nothing.
Stop anything
That
because
don't mean nothing.
it don't. Because another thing that we have to take into consideration, like you said, we're all God's children. So last names don't mean nothing. A lot of our last names is Black people and African Americans. All that's is slave names. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So there's no real identity behind it. So it can be a lot of people that have Johnson and Brown and this and that, and there might be no relation, but there
Especially if
could
you
be
don't,
relation.
especially if you don't know your daddy.
Yeah.
So just because my last name Brown, shoot, if my last name was Brown and I would have met Chris Brown in high school, you couldn't tell me I wasn't gonna be with him. I would have been like, "Who your mama? I don't know him." Okay, you know what I mean? Like, if people want to get together, last names are, like you said, they in America they don't stem from anything except for slavery or slave owners. So that's not gonna stop people. The way we stop all of these broken homes and broken situations is if we start focusing on family planning and only having children with people who want to marry us as women. And I will die on a hill and shout it from the rooftops, and everybody ain't gonna be on the same page. I understand. And I'm not bashing or talking down to women who have already had children. I understand.
I'm
But
not afraid to have the
moving forward, if I
have the
felt like we would have such better outcomes, family structure, everything, because that's where it starts. It starts with the family. And if the family is healthy, if the mother and dad are healthy and they procreate and they raise a healthy child, then we don't got to deal with all this childhood trauma and people hurting each other and gender wars, because that prolific family would find another prolific family. They'd be like, "Hey, your son, my daughter, make another prolific family," and it would just continue on and it would be healthy. But
yeah.
until we start praising toxicity and things that are not good for us, we're never going to get ahead.
Right. And it's true, but the the beauty of it all is at least we can have the conversation so we can make people aware so they can hear it and not say, well, I didn't never hear that. I didn't never think about it. Because before I heard you say it, I never thought about it. It was
Mm-hmm.
never even a thought, but it's good to know, hey,
Mm-hmm.
look, like you gotta hold these men accountable. And the best way to do it is you want to be with me, marry me. You want to have a child with me, marry me. Let's raise
Bingo.
a family. Let's work it out. Let's do the right thing. Let's take the necessary steps because it's harder to be married than it. Well, I mean, I guess it just, but
And no,
it
it is harder to be married because you can easily walk away. And marriage challenges you in different ways because you get spiritually attacked. Like it's deeper spiritually. So it is harder and it takes longer to get married, right, for most people than it is to date. So if we did the vetting process, if we didn't sleep with each other and we really got to know each other, I think more people would find out their partners were abusive. I think a lot more people would find out their partners are narcissists. I think a lot more people find out that their dudes aren't ish because they have no self discipline or whatever. I feel
right.
like if we took sex off the table and people really did that process to get to marriage, a lot
Mhm.
more would be exposed a lot faster, especially if you put God in it. Because
Yeah,
people always tell me marriage doesn't guarantee and people get abused in marriage, which are both true. However, if we gave it some time and really vetted and got out of our feelings and got out of the bed, we would see red flags a lot sooner. And God
yeah.
would reveal things a lot sooner. We just want to do what we want to do.
No, it's true. And outside of sex, a lot of men don't really have much to offer. So that's why they hold on so much to it because at the end of the day, it's an ego thing, right? It's not about trying to. It's about making themselves feel good because they don't have much to offer.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, it's true.
Or
You know
they think that's where their value lies.
that. There
So
you
they
go.
feel it. They
Yeah,
feel it with all these women when really they're hurt and they need to go heal and
yeah,
they need
hmm
to, and they
yeah,
cause more issues. I just reacted to a TikTok where a man was talking about how having multiple baby mamas is not okay. It's just like you hurt yourself.
yeah. It's true.
You don't get to see your children. You have to deal with all this financial stuff. Like,
Yeah, you hurt your children. You decrease your legacy, generationally, financially, because now you got to spread the wealth in so many areas.
and you
You
only
know,
have so much time. Everybody ain't Nick Cannon. We got to
right?
stop that.
Look,
So many broke men be wanting polyamorous relationships. Baby, you can't even take care of one family. Calm down. Like, we need
right.
to stop. We need to
That
stop. We need to stop.
are are there legal or logistical challenges that unmarried mothers may face when making this choice, and how can they navigate them effectively?
Legal or logistical, again, depends on the state. I think that legally, again, if you put that man's name on there, maybe when you go get a passport, you want to take your child on a cruise, you want to go to Paris, or there could be a plethora of things, and it's different for every state. Some states it matters, some states it doesn't. I would just, again, my argument would be to research and understand your rights, um, and really think, do I even have money to hire a lawyer? Do I have money to fight this man in court? Men need to ask, do I have money to go to take this woman to court and get custody or do this paperwork? Like, it's just all on the state. And I just think they just have to know their rights and think long term about, like, what does my life with my child really look like? What activities would I want to do with them? Certain states, if you want to take your child out the state or out the country, you have to get permission from the father. Is that something you want to have to do every time? Or if you want to put them in a certain school, sometimes if you want to move, like say if you want to move to a different state or you have a new job opportunity and maybe you filed child support in that state and that gave that man legal rights, you might not be able to move to better your career and better your job because no, that man has custody. You got to stay right there. So there's a lot that's really layered and every situation is unique. Some men care, some men don't. Some men will be petty, some won't. It's
Depends.
very nuanced. You just need to know what you are signing up for. And a lot of people, it's too late by the time they find out.
Yeah, you figure out because by that time the love is gone and the war has begun, unfortunately.
And
And
people
it's
change.
yeah, people change that part. Yeah, and and for the men who are doing what they're supposed to do, we commend you. Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of men get a lot of But there are men out here really trying to do the right things and, trying to
It ain't
be
enough.
right and be honorable. And sometimes they get themselves in situations where they got difficult baby mamas. So, for those women out there who are holding children against men, don't do that, because those kids need their father if he wants to be there. You know what I mean? You got to, like you say, you got to put your feelings aside, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, can you address the cultural or societal stigmas and judgments that unmarried mothers may encounter based on their choice of the child's last name?
I think you hit the nail on the head depending on the reputation of the father. Um, Maybe not even the name, who she chose. A lot of men look at women's value by if she has children, her age. And again, this is not God's value for
Right.
you. But you just don't want to disqualify yourself from a really good man because you make mistakes. And again, if you do and he don't want you, okay, next. There's plenty of men who will. So I'm
Right.
not saying that necessarily, but um sometimes who you choose as your baby's father, people will look at you like him.
Yeah.
Like I thought you was up here and you had a baby with him. Like some of the women that get caught up and they get pregnant, they be like, him? Like that matters. Like who you have a child with, two other men matters because it shows them how you feel about yourself.
That's
So
true.
if your baby daddy is Pookie and Ray Ray from around the corner,
Hmm.
men will kind of look at you like you gave him a child. Oh, you
Yeah.
don't got no standards. Even if that's not true.
Yeah.
Who could have just got you on a good night and you was lonely? They don't care nothing about the story.
No, they don't. Yeah, and when you're younger, people tell you things. They tell you pipe dreams, and you think that they're going to do something different and be something different. So, but
Right.
you're right, men. But to those men who do step up and take on the role as stepfathers, we commend you too. But
Yeah,
that's a
no, for
whole nother
sure.
conversation too, because then when that man comes in and takes on that responsibility as a stepfather, and he's okay with doing that, and he marries you and gives you his last name, and now you guys start a family together, those kids, those other kids, they feel left out. Even
They
though that
definitely
man
do.
may not make them feel left out, but just the idea of knowing, like, he stayed around for his kids. He gave my mom a different last name. You know what I mean? You don't know how that plays on children psychologically later on in life.
Absolutely. And also women need to know that too, because I remember when I was growing up, my mom got remarried, and in order to change my name, my stepdad would have had to adopt me. And my mom reached out to my dad. He said no, which
Mm,
I'm kind of happy he did. Because some other stuff happened and I would have been with my stepdad and that would have been, ooh, child. So I think that when they just need to know their rights. Like, would you have to ask permission to change your child's last name if you did want to have everybody, the same? Like, I don't know if Steve Harvey had to get permission from those fathers. I don't, maybe in they
right.
state wherever they were, it was like, nah, they were, I don't know. So it's like you have to really, like, you could have a fairy tale ending like Marjorie Harvey, right? That's like ideal.
Yeah.
Ideally, you would meet a
Yeah.
man who got something good, take all your children and run off into the sunset and have a great life.
I did.
Ideally.
But we're
But does that happen to most women?
right.
It doesn't. And that's another thing is like I want the young women to stop looking at the rare instances of when it does work and
Right.
stop looking at how life should be and look at life how it is and make better decisions on how life is.
Right.
Because being rescued is rare. And I'm not hating on Marjorie Harvey. I actually commend her. Get your
I
thing,
know
girl.
you
Get your
did her
thing,
thing.
girl. I love
Man.
me some Marjorie Harvey. But a lot of men, especially the immature ones, not mature men will step up and they have no issues being a stepfather.
Right.
There are some that feel like that's not my job. So you want me to raise another man's child and blah blah blah. Half them time they come from single mothers too. So I don't even know why they talk like that. But
Right.
you know
That's
what I
true.
mean? Like, so it's just way more immature men than there are mature men.
Yeah, unfortunately. And another thing that we have to just we need more men that they got this thing figured out, that understand what it is to be a man. You know, they understand the whole, they've been through all the whole phase and all that other stuff that these men are going through now. We need more of them to step up and like take these young men under their wings and teach them some
Mhm.
things, because these men are lost. They
They,
didn't
you
have,
know what?
so they
They
lost.
try, but you
Yeah, that,
can't tell them it. Like one thing I can say about young women, they listen.
yeah.
I've asked men this because I always, every time I go live and they're like, you need to hold black women accountable. I'm like, wait, wait, wait. I do that. What y'all over? Y'all need to get a black men's coalition. Y'all
Hmm.
get together and tell your brothers stop doing this and stop doing that. So I try to get them together, but they don't listen. And I've talked to other black men who have said, unfortunately, young black men don't listen. And so they kind of give up, which is unfortunate. They shouldn't. They should keep. So if you don't catch these men young, and that's why if any young mother out there has young boys, please get them into some sort of mentorship. Make sure that they have a good coach. If you don't have a strong male figure for them to be raised up under, get them around some strong black men while
Yeah.
they're young, because once they reach a certain age, can't nobody tell them nothing. They think they have it all figured out. They think that they know. I try to talk to my homegirl's younger brother. He's 28, and that little boy lost in the sauce. He think he got it figured out. Want a woman to do everything but get married.
Hmm.
Child, it's crazy. So I think that and it's crazy who they do listen to.
Yeah, of course.
They
The
listen
one
to the men with the podcast with the lights that be in a base.
people that
It's weird.
support your bad behavior. That's what they're gonna listen to. People that's gonna make what you're doing that's wrong right. That's what they're gonna listen to. Like I
Jesus.
said, everybody don't want truth, because truth hurts. Truth makes you have to look in the mirror, take accountability, and realize, yo, I gotta do better. But
Mhm.
some people don't want better for themselves, unfortunately.
Mhm. No.
You know, it's hard to work towards better. It takes a lot of self discipline. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of it's a lot of work, you know, and people don't want to do the work
But your life is so much better when you do.
when you do the work. Yeah,
Life is so much more peaceful when you do.
yeah, I agree. So, how does the child's future autonomy and self identity factor into the decision of choosing their last name?
I think it will depend on the child. You won't know until your child is an adult.
Yeah,
You know, that's something that you can't. I think your child's identity more so comes from the values you instill in them, the experiences that they have. My name means something to me, but it really didn't mean much until I was an adult and I made a name for myself. I made Brittany Daniel mean something.
right.
You know, I use that name to my advantage to mean something. So I think that that's the most important part, because I think we're not attached to our names like as men, or maybe it's different. I'm not sure. And I think every person is different, because some people love that they have their father's last name. Some people don't care. Um, I think it's the experiences you give them, the love that you give them, the influence that you are as a parent. Are you leading by example? I think that your memories of your life shape who you are more than your name,
Than your name, right?
I would
Exactly.
say.
That
Mhm.
you can grow up and just decide, I want to change my name. I just don't want it no more for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Transgender people do it all the time.
that part, that part. We living in those times, and this the world we live in. Everything goes.
You can change your
Um,
name, anything.
yeah, and I'll be honest, because for me, like my family's last name in our country used to be a big deal because of what they come from and things like
Mhm.
that. But over the years, it got watered down because of other, like, people got messy, you know. So
Mm,
when and then sometimes when you get to a space of like her and being, you don't hold it as much value, you know. It's just like, oh, it's just a last name. But then you have other family members that they die by it, you know what I mean. But when my dad passed away, it meant so much more to me to
mhm,
have that last name, you know,
mhm.
because I knew how much it meant to him to be a Palmer, how he was just one of those people who was just honorable. And you know, he
Are you Kiki cousin?
oh yeah, no, I forgot. Look,
You Kiki
yeah,
cousin. Hey girl.
yeah.
It's your cousin.
And you never know, right? No, but
Mm-mm.
and he, you know, their last name for them meant like a lot. So my dad was very big on his last name. but it didn't mean much to me when he was alive because of other messy stuff. But now that he's gone, it's like, oh my God, I love to be a Palmer, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it does take on its own identity when
You bring me back on another episode, we got to talk about changing your last name when you married, because that's a whole process, child.
oh, all right. What we'll do, we'll talk about it because guess what? We trying to bring women closer towards marriage because that's the goal. That's
Mm-hmm.
what God wants for us. And I hear people say that there are women out here that don't want to be married. I don't know if I really believe that because I feel like as a child,
Mm-hmm.
it's always just been that. Well, I'm not because I don't want to speak on everybody. I just feel like you always kind of just had that feeling in your heart that you wanted to be somebody's wife and you wanted to be loved on and cared for and provided and protected for. But I think because over the years women have been so hurt and they're, angry with men, so they take on that narrative like I never wanted to be a wife. I never, but I mean, I can't speak on everybody, but I don't
I
really
think
believe.
I think there comes a point in time where some people just do give up because either they've been hurt, they're tired of being cheated on, they don't see any men in their lives, or they're listening to these men online that say that they don't want to get married. So, like, why would I feel like some of them feel like, why would I desire something that y'all don't even want? So I'm just wasting my time. So let me just focus on not being married. But it's beneficial for the children.
Yeah, it is. It's
I stand
beneficial
by
for
my
the woman too. I want to be a kept woman. Why not?
period.
Why not? So, can you discuss the potential impact of the choice on the child's heritage, culture, background, and sense of belonging? I think we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice can you offer to unmarried mothers who are uncertain about what last name to choose for their child or why they should even consider?
I would think about it, pray. And people may say this is petty. That is your child. It's especially if he was not around. Like if you're not married, that is your child. He can leave at any time. And I know that this is very cynical, but we got to look at life and statistics.
Right.
Most baby daddies or men who do not marry the mother end up leaving. And only maybe 17-20% stay, maybe. And there's a 50-50 shot that if y'all cohabitate, that relationship can end. So I just feel like if he wants to be the father and he wants to be the person who gets the legacy, not to say to hold it at hostage is like you got to do, you don't get no until you marry me, because really it should have been like you don't get my cookie until you marry me, right?
Right. No, if you don't do it
um
after the baby come.
it's kind of like it's a little backwards,
Yeah.
but you really have to think long term. You got to put your feelings aside. You got to even put your if it can't be out of spite. I'm not telling any woman to do this to be spiteful. That's not what I'm
Exactly.
saying.
I agree.
But if he already has a track record of not keeping his word, not having integrity, not showing up for you, you are rolling the dice whether or not he's going to be in that child's life. And
And
if he's
consistency.
not going to be there, don't you want the freedom to move how you want to move with your child that you're raising? Or do you want to have to call that ninja every so many years or so many months to be like, can I do this? Can I do that? And maybe he's the spiteful one, because it's spiteful baby daddies out there. No,
I,
now you
I
can't go on a
agree.
trip with your child, or now you can't take your child out of state, or now you can't move and better your life for whatever reason. Or I think that we got to look outside of birth certificates and child support. Because
Yeah.
let's keep it a bean. A lot of these young men don't make a whole lot of money, so that child support is going to be little
Nothing. It's changed. You can't even survive off of it. So
at
yeah,
all. You
you got to
might be
think
able to get a couple, maybe two pairs of shoes, maybe a
if
couple
even that.
outfits, maybe one grocery trip, maybe.
Maybe right. Inflation, I don't even know. It's yeah, so
You
you
get
gotta
more you get more money with EBT.
right. You're right.
So
You're right. So
So is
yeah.
it is that little bit of change? Because people was arguing me down about some dang child support, so I had to do a whole post on child support. I was like, y'all, these men, they're young. They don't make no money. They don't make no money. They got no money. Y'all want child support? They barely go to work.
Yeah, that part. You're right. So, how can unmarried mothers engage in open and respectful communication with the child's father when making this decision?
It's gonna be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is. We got to have
But at
difficult
the
conversations, right?
but at the end of the day, depending on, you got to look at your state laws. If you were in Georgia, I would just tell them, it wouldn't be no conversation. Like if I was an unmarried mother and I was like iffy on if my baby's father was really gonna step up and be a good father to my child, it wouldn't be a conversation. I would just inform you that, or you would, maybe you would just see it. Since I had to see who you were, maybe you would just see. Maybe that's a little petty.
That's
I got a
petty.
little petty in my tank a little bit. That's cool.
That's petty.
I personally wouldn't care, because by law, what can you do? I'm following the state law. But you don't have to be like me, ladies. You don't have to be like me. I would know how angry I would be and how hurt and disappointed I would be. So I probably wouldn't care about feelings when I'm looking out for the benefit of my child. Now, if there were benefits of the child having his last name,
Right.
if he was a Harvey, cool, you got it.
If you locked up, right, and you got caught, you
Oh
got
no, if you locked
somebody.
up, my child really ain't having your name, child. Mm-mm. Be
Then
associated
we're
with that.
fighting to give that last name away, right? You can have
Mm.
his last name because we're gonna benefit from it. But
Exactly. If there's no benefits for the mother, or if, for that child to have that person's last name, what's the point?
yeah, yeah. So you really have to really look at really think about it, because this is a deep conversation, and we had to have it, because when I heard that, I was like, wait, what? I ain't never heard nobody talking about no stuff like that. We just automatically giving last names out here.
Giving
But
away legacy for nothing.
yeah. hmm and you brought up a good point about it being not just about wealth and things like that, but relationship, connection, being able to relate, to say that these are the people that I act like these people. Because sometimes you might spend all these years with these people, but you don't behave like any of them, and you're trying to figure out, like, well, who do I behave like? Who do I look like? You're trying to figure certain things out about yourself.
And sometimes it's not even your parent. Like sometimes I would look at my dad and be like, oh. But then when I spent time with my grandparents, I was like, I was looking at
Eric,
my grandfather's. I have these really pointy elf ears. I always had little pointy elf ears, right? And I was looking at my grandfather's picture, baby picture, one day at his house. And I was like, Papa, I have your ears. I was wondering where I got these ears from. And it's those things that if that man is not going to, and men grow up, because I didn't grow up with my father. It took a long time to get here.
yeah,
But it's those things. But just because I didn't have my father's last name never made me less than a Rosser.
yeah,
Nobody ever in my family ever said, well, you don't got our last name, so you ain't
right.
my.
But they
They like,
understood
oh, you ain't daughter.
too. They understood the situation. And when
Then
people,
nobody cared. I don't even think half my family knows my last name. They don't care. They know who I am. That's Wayne daughter.
yeah, right, and they loved you regardless. So
Right.
that's what you have to think about. If people are not being immature and petty, nobody even cares about that. It's just about loving on you and loving you and accepting you in the family. It's not about
Exactly. I have never heard a grandmother say, I don't want my grandbaby because they don't have my name. Them
yeah.
grandmas don't care. They get a hold of them grandbabies, they gonna let them things down. They don't care what the name is.
That's so true. That's so true. So, Brittany, honey, girl, this conversation was something, but I have to thank you for having it, because we needed to, like, woo.
Thank
I
you. Thank
hope
you for
that,
having me.
thank you, thank you. I hope that when we finally put this out there, that that young women will really be inspired by it, and they'll really start looking at their life. The ones who don't have children yet, that they will really start to take into consideration what they want their life to look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're not married, if they're not mothers yet, that they just, hold men accountable to do right by them. Make a woman out of you. That's what they
Yeah.
say. Man marries you when he honors you. And this thing about dating, yeah, they say we date for data and this and that. But we also have to get back to a space of men courting women. Like, you got to do more. You got to really go out the way to show women that you really want to be with them. You really want to take responsibility for them. You really want to. I think we got to get back to that. We got to hold men accountable.
We have to raise our standards to that. That's the
Yeah,
problem though, because they're on the reason why they don't do nothing no more is because our standards are in hell. Like we don't make them court us. We don't make them do anything. And I'm not a don't take me to the Cheesecake Factory type of girl. First of all, I love the Cheesecake Factory, by the way.
right.
We just had cheesecake the other night. It was so good. Um, it's not about where he takes, it's how he treats you. How is he a gentleman? Is he chivalrous? Does he have integrity? Does he have honor? Is he a man of his word? Like I want us as women too. The stuff is nice, but the stuff can come and go.
Yeah, it's not about
It's,
material.
it's not about
I,
material things. Now, you do need money to be married. So I'm not telling you to not, he can't be broke. But,
right.
I feel like if we raise our standards, but it would have to be a collective thing because if we don't, then we're just going to keep getting the same thing that we've been getting because it's just going downhill.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we got to be consistent. And then another thing too is, hey, look, because right now I'm raising boys. So one thing that I'm very, very big on is making sure that I am, they say a woman can't raise a man, right? And
Mhm.
that's true to a certain extent. But there's certain things that I instill in them, right? There's certain things that I want them to know as young men that, hey, this is going to be expected of you when you become a man.
Mhm.
There's certain things that this is, well, the good thing about it, my kids are in like, private school. So they're like in a Christian school. So they talk about those kind of things about, to a certain extent, holding men accountable for certain things that they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Because character is so important. It's so important because a lot of the things that a lot of these men are engaging in is because they're character flaws,
Yeah,
right? Because if you can't be true to yourself, if you can't not cheat yourself, if you are not able to be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anybody else.
that's a fact.
So it starts from the childhood. It starts from the beginning. It starts in the
Mhm.
household where, yes, we're single moms, but we got to hold our boys accountable. We can't keep raising our girls and coddling our boys. We got to raise our boys too. And we got to
Mhm.
have a certain standards for our children, our young men, because you
Mhm.
can't just say, oh, well, my daughter got to learn how to keep house. She got to learn how to, your son need to learn the same thing. He needs to learn
Absolutely.
how to be a provider, a protector. That, I have those conversations even when I pray for my kids in the morning, my brother and things like that. Those are the kind of things that I pray for them about. I want them to hear me saying that, God, I want to raise young men with integrity, with character, and then they'll ask me, well, mommy, what do those things mean? So now let's have a
I love
conversation.
that.
What those things mean, right?
I love that.
Even though you're going to these schools and you're hearing these things, if it's not being reinforced at home, it
Mhm.
means nothing. So those are
Mhm.
our prayers every morning. And my brother would tell you because I'm very big on that, especially with him now because he's 15 and my
Mhm.
dad is not around, so it's like, that worry is there. But thank goodness he has some good teachers in his school that have taken a liking to him. So they're helping him to continue to walk the walk that my father would want to see him walk. And what I hope
Absolutely.
is that, you know, they say train a child in the way that they should go and they won't depart from it. Even if they get older and they start to kind of get confused, they come back to it.
Mhm.
Because once the foundation is laid, it's laid. If it's laid correctly, they're going to come back to it. So I'm very consistent with keeping them on that, like, integrity. You have to be a man of your word. You have to, if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. If you can't do it, you got to follow up and with conversation. Hey, this kind of took place. This is why I can't do this. You got to
Mhm.
be honest. You got to be reliable. You can't
Mhm.
cheat. You can't, because that kind of stuff, you cheat yourself. I feel like
Absolutely.
get to realize that, yeah, you might be out here hurting these women and you doing this and you doing that, but at the end of the day, guess who you're hurting it at the end of it all? It's
It's coming
yourself.
back. Yep. And it's gonna
Because
come
it's
back to
yourself
you.
that you don't love. And karma is real.
Absolutely. Did it stop recording? Because it's paused on my end.
No, it's still recording.
Okay. No,
It's recording.
absolutely. You're right. And one thing I will also I will give a gem to mothers with sons. Also teach them respect every woman, but don't do every woman don't deserve you doing for them.
That part.
So every
That's true.
woman deserves a level of respect of human decency. I remember
Yes.
that was one thing that my homeboy said that his mother was
I
really
like
good on, treat women with respect, open doors, do all of these things. And so a
I
lot of
like
young men end up getting hurt because mothers aren't teaching them who to discern to do that
mhm,
with.
I like
Every
that.
girl is not raised, and we notice every
Hmm.
little young girl ain't raised to be a lady,
You're right.
right? And some of them do try to play men or, have a really little stank attitude. And I try to
But
tell
they got,
men, the only
yeah.
person that's a princess is you. That's your princess. It ain't nobody else princess in this world. Okay, so you treat you raising a little spoiled, stuck up little thing. That's
Mhm.
your thing. That's your little stuck up thing. We don't want to deal with her. But
That's true.
I would challenge, like, you treat everybody with a level of decency and human respect. However, every woman doesn't deserve your best or your above and beyond.
Yeah, I like that because that's definitely true. That's true. I don't actually teach my kids that, but I will. But my brother already has that understanding in his mind because some of the conversations that he'll have, he doesn't
Hmm.
talk to us much. He talks to my mom, and my mom would say how he says like certain girls in his. Well, let me retract because but certain conversation would be like there's certain people they do certain things and you're like, yeah, that's not a lady. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And he has that understanding already. And I'm like, yo, that's important. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So of course, because we are a spa and we like to know what is it that you do for self-care?
Oh, I rest, child. Oh, I will take me a nap. I will lay down. I'm in a very delicate time in my life right now, but I will I'm so thankful for my husband because he's very much so the honey, lay down, rest. I'm like, I'm so sorry I didn't do dishes. He's like, it's fine. Like, he doesn't, when you before you get married, be very honest with the type of woman you are, and make sure that you guys are on the same page with expectations. I'm
Yes.
very blessed to have a man that is okay with, ooh, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't
I don't
see you, but
know.
I can hear you.
I don't know what's going on with my little thing. Oh, there I go.
Now.
I'm very blessed with a man who, it's just okay with me being a woman and just falling back and letting me rest. So I just like to rest, take naps, and I like to do what I love, going for walks. Um, Before the winter time, I love to skate. I just like to pour into me. I love spending time with my sisters. I love having girls' night with my friends. Um, Watching a good show. Like, I just, I always like to just pour back into me, and then spending time with God, church. Yeah, just
I
little.
like
I'm very simple. I like the little things.
Yeah, but I like that because guess what? Those little simple things are the things that keep you in that energy of the woman, being
Mhm.
soft, being able to be more playful. Because when you're at rest, your heart is not heavy. You're able to do a lot more loving, a lot more nurturing, right? So
Mhm.
your husband, he knows what he's doing and he's doing the right thing, right? That's
Thank
why
you.
he's a
Yeah.
husband because he gets it. Because when you
Mhm.
take on the responsibility of a wife, you understand that you have to be able to keep her in a certain space and energy so that she can give you that love and that support and encouragement that you need from her.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's important. So guys, we ain't just saying that marriage is law. It was created for a reason because there's an understanding behind it. When it's done right, everybody
Mhm.
is fulfilled. Everybody benefits. Not just
Yes.
the man, not just the woman. When it's done right, everybody
Mhm.
is receiving what they need from it.
Absolutely. Because a man who cares about you does not want you to be a slave. So,
Um,
ladies, you do not have to get married and become anybody's slave or mama, none of that.
yeah, and then I think that's another conversation in itself because men, there are men out here who get wives to make them slaves because they don't want to do nothing. They want some. That's not what it's about. That's
Or
why
that's
every
what their mothers did. That's why I think it's very damaging for your children to see you do or think that you're superwoman and see you do everything.
no, it's true. It's
Because
definitely
then they grow up thinking, well, my mama did it.
So why
I don't
can't
want to be like
you
my mama.
when there's an expectation on them as well? So that's why you got to make it clear to them, right? I'm not doing
Mhm.
this because I want to. I'm doing this because I have to. This is not how it's supposed to be done.
Love
You
that.
know? So yeah, I love it. So, is there any encouragement, tips, suggestion, advice, or support that you would want to give to other moms based on what you have learned in your own experience or just things that have been shared with you that you would like to help other moms in their journey?
Live your life. I want, if I could take, and I get it's biological, you can't help this. You're doing amazing. Let go of mommy guilt as much as you can. I know that that's something that's like, I just sometimes I want to shake my mommy friends
Yeah.
and be like, your child is fine. They don't, oh, this is another thing. The holidays are coming up. They don't need a lot. Don't go broke for them cheering and stop giving Santa all the credit.
Yes. How
Santa
many
can
toys
bring
did,
one or two toys.
yes. They don't even
Stop
play with
giving
them one day.
Stop giving Santa all that credit. Don't go broke. Your children can have a nice Christmas without you being broke in January or trying to catch up because everybody get paid the same. Your paycheck don't change because Christmas is coming.
That's true.
Um,
Right.
so and do for you. Like, and I know that's hard. I have a sister who is an amazing mother and she's doing it all herself. But it's okay if y'all don't do something for the weekend or everybody's just in the house in their room. Like, it's okay if you just like, look, I ain't got it. That doesn't make you a bad mom because you don't have all the activities planned, or it's okay to just be like, we ain't doing nothing this weekend, or I'm gonna pop this pizza in the oven and we're gonna call it a night.
Yep, yep, it's okay. I like that. I like that. That's great advice. And that conversation of mom guilt, I had that conversation with my cousin, so we're gonna drop that soon too,
Yeah.
because that's definitely real. And I love what you said. And you know what? Let's start focusing on giving our kids things, right? Because things become they clutter. It becomes clutter. Let's give them
They get entitled. I remember
yeah,
one Christmas, my sister went above and beyond. They had a great Christmas. My nephew opened like at least 20 gifts, got a bike, all this stuff, and he looks around. He was like, "That's it."
right,
I wanted to choke him.
right,
I was like,
right.
"What you mean?"
They get a sense of entitlement. They have this expectation that, because I hear my son, my mommy, what you gonna give me for Christmas? Nothing. I mean, I bought you everything. What else do you really need? Because I think we get them into this idea of you have to keep having more. Anything that's new, anything that's latest, you need it. No, you do not. So let's
Mhm.
start giving our kids things that hold value, right? Things that when they're adults they can appreciate, things that they can take into adulthood,
Mhm.
experiences, lessons, right? Let's teach
Mhm.
them things that we have learned and grown from.
Well, and this is
Those
on my heart to share, and I'm not a mom yet, so I understand why moms do this. But instead of giving your children phones and tablets in church, give them a piece of paper and a pen.
I like that.
Because when we were kids, we had to sit there, right? And
Hmm.
I just remember little lessons were just, we had to learn to be still. We had to shut up. We had to be bored. We had to fall asleep. And I think when the kids are distracted, and I get why people give them the tablets and the phones, but then I think their minds aren't open to hear possibly those little seeds that can be planted, even if they're little. Like they understand way more than we give them credit for.
No, it's true. They can work a
Yeah.
tablet, girl. They can understand. They definitely
So
can. And I
I
like
would
that.
just church. I get it. Everywhere else is fine, but if in church, take the phones and tablets away. Kind of let's go back a little old school, just so they can get those little seeds implanted in their spirit. Because I got saved at the age of like 9 or 10,
Yeah.
and I would have never thought that a 9 or 10-year-old could understand the power of Jesus. But if I didn't have those experiences, I would not be the person I was today. Because I would be like most people, thinking that that's not real. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let them
And
get those little downloads.
yeah, that's true. I like that. That's a great idea. And thank goodness for Sunday school too, right? Because they keep them.
Mhm.
Because that's where I learned a lot of my values and integrity and things like that. Because you go through the Bible and things like that. And I must say for the people who are not religious, but they might be spiritual and things like that, it's still important for us to build character in our children. And I think that's really the outside of all the other stuff about religion, because I think religion kind of divides us as opposed to bring us together. We have to remember that it's set in place to teach us character building, and
Mhm.
that's the most important thing that sometimes we forget when we get into the conversation of why I don't go to church anymore, or why I don't do this or this and that. And one thing I told somebody recently, because I don't go to church much. Like I grew up in the church and all of that. I don't go much anymore. But one thing that I told somebody recently is I have to get back to a space of giving my children the opportunity that I had to be able to be a better person, because
Mm-mm.
I can't cheat them of certain experiences that I got to experience, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily saying that we always got to be in church and things like that, but I do believe that there's certain things that you want them to be exposed to because it's going to make them better human beings.
And just teaching them that a relationship with God is the most important.
Thing,
Just
right?
sharing them with who God is. So if you haven't picked a religion yet, or maybe like you said, church or religion isn't your thing just yet, that relationship that they can go to God, that God loves them, that God is always there for them, that they're never alone. God is always there. So just teaching them those like those principles and putting God in their heart is super impactful.
Yeah, I like that because I think that's what a lot of people have moved away from, and that's why
Mhm.
there's not much integrity. Even when you think about relationships, how often are we praying together? How often are we putting God in the midst of it all? Even as unmarried couples, how often are we asking for guidance and making sure that we're following the right path, or we're having communication issues? So now let's pray together. Let's, and some of these things I did do just because of my background, but but sometimes, people grow up in the church and they change,
Mhm.
because they have
I agree.
experiences and they feel like, well, God didn't show up for them. But what we got to
Mhm.
understand in this life is, sometimes we go through things and that doesn't mean that He's not there, but He needs things for us to go through to shape us into
Right.
the people that He needs us to be able to have a testimony and a story to be able to bless somebody else. Right.
Absolutely.
And there's one thing that we didn't talk about that I'm gonna just talk about really quickly too. For women who are looking for husbands, it's very important to be able to understand what vision does a man have for his life. What vision does he have for his family? What vision does he have for his children? What is it that you guys are going to be working towards? Because I think we have forgotten that we as women, we're helpmates, right? We're not here to build men. We're here to help them through whatever they have already discovered is the purpose. And that's
Mhm.
how you know who you're supposed to be in relation with. Because if
Absolutely.
you don't fit the purpose, if you don't believe in the vision, you can't help this man through it, right?
That's so good.
What value does the family stand on? You know?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I so appreciate you for having this conversation with me.
Thank you. You
And
might have to break this into 2 parts, girl.
well, I drop it. I let it go ahead and go. But we getting ready to end. But now this
Yeah.
is your time to shine. This is your
Aw.
time to tell people how they can connect with you, how they can continue to have this conversation with you, how they can follow you on your platform so that they can spread the word as to why this is so important and why we have to get back to a place of building families.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. You all can follow me at Brittany the host. I'm on Instagram, TikTok with Heal with Brittany, or you can put in Brittany the host. I believe I pop up there. Follow me on YouTube. I will be coming back to YouTube, relaunching season 5 of my podcast very soon.
Yes.
I had to take a little break this year. And I just really appreciate it. I have a book dropping in the beginning of the year, helping women heal, get their lives closer to God. And I believe after I do that, because God has been calling me to hurry up and finish this book, girl. Once I do
I,
that, I think I could definitely focus on like my podcast again and getting more interviews and things like that. But really need to drop this book because I want to really help young ladies heal and make just better decisions for themselves. Not about what I think. It's really what God is saying to us and aligning with his purpose. Because if we would align with what God says to do, we alleviate a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of heartache, headache,
Oh my
hurt,
goodness.
stress. So and of course I'm gonna get all of your contact information. So when we drop the video, we can go ahead and drop this at the end as well so people can they know how to connect with you. So Brittany, I truly appreciate you. I thank you for your time. You didn't know me from nowhere, but you said yes, and I appreciate that for
Thank
trusting.
you.
Thank you.
I
Um,
enjoyed this conversation very much. So thank
thank
you for
you.
having me.
So I like to end with quotes. So I'm gonna hit y'all with my quotes real quick because every topic I got a quote to accompany it. The greatest legacy one can pass on to one's children and grandchildren is not money, but rather the legacy of character and faith. My
Mm.
last name is a source of inspiration and motivation, reminding me of the sacrifices and hard work of my family. I carry my last name with pride, knowing that it has been passed down through generation of hard-working, passionate, and loving individuals. I wear my last name with pride, knowing that it represents the values, the strengths, the determination, the resilience, and the traditions of my family. So, what we're telling you is pass on last names that are creating family building. It's very
Mhm.
important. So let's keep that at the forefront because it's about building
Absolutely.
families. It's not about broken homes anymore. We gotta repair. We gotta
Absolutely.
heal and repair. So I thank you, Brittany.
Thank
I
you.
I thank all my moms for showing up, for tuning in. Continue to like, continue to subscribe, continue to share. We're opening up our platform for other moms to come and talk to us. Come tell us your story. Want to hear from you. I feel like everybody has something valuable to offer. It don't matter what your journey has been, we want to hear about it. And most importantly, we want you to continue to love on yourself. Continue to put yourself first. Continue to understand that you are worthy, you're valuable, you matter, right? Let's stop making decisions based on a place of lack, right? Because we are built on abundance, so we have to start operating in abundance. And it requires you taking time to love on yourself, to pour into yourself. You can't love on anybody else if you can't love on you first. That goes for your children, your family, your friends, whatever. So we here at Self-Indulgent, we like to always remind you to put yourself first and self-indulge. It's not selfish to love on you. You got to preserve yourself. So we thank you, Brittany, for being with us. Continue to like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Don't come off yet.